Welcome to The Cynical Developer, the podcast that helps you to improve your development knowledge and career through explaining the latest and greatest in development technology and providing you with what you need to succeed as a developer. In this episode, we talk to Gary Ewan about Chocolatey. Gary has been developing in the .NET platform for almost 10 years. His day job sees him developing ASP.NET, AngularJS and WPF applications for oil companies working in the North Sea. In his spare time, Gary contributes to a number of open source projects, including Chocolatey, Boxstarter, Cake and Git version. Gary is a founding member of the Aberdeen Developers.NET user group that holds monthly sessions on any topic related to the Microsoft.NET technology stack. Gary has recently, as of this recording, been made an MVP for Visual Studio and Development Technologies. Gary was also our first guest back on our original show in September 2016, and he came to talk to us about Cake Build. And today he's here to talk about Chocolatey. There seems to be a bit of a theme appearing for the name of the projects that you like to get involved with, Gary.
Yeah, I've definitely heard that before. Yeah, so it's I like some chocolatey cake. Let's put it that way.
do they work? Do they work well together?
They do actually. Yeah, I mean that's actually where I started getting involved with Cake. I added in a set of chocolatey module aliases for Cake. So the idea being that from a Cake script, I could do a Choco install or a Choco pack as part of my build process. So if I needed a tool as part of my build, I could install it with Chocolatey. If I wanted to create a package for later consumption as a result of my build, I can do that as well. So yeah, they definitely play nicely together.
Yeah, sort of mated up by name and work well together. That's
absolutely
good. So Chocolatey is described as software management automation. So what is Chocolatey? What does software management automation actually mean?
So Chocolatey, it's hard. So Chocolatey, let's go back to the beginning. So Chocolatey is an EXE. It's a command line tool that you would download and install onto your machine. And once you have it, you can use it for software management automation. So that kind of it's a broad sweeping term, but essentially what that breaks down to is you can use it to install software and applications onto your computer. You can use it to upgrade those same applications once a new version comes out. You can obviously use it to uninstall that application. And then where Chocolatey is starting to go towards is more of a top level management of the software as well. So knowing what's installed on a computer and providing auditing information on that. So it kind of builds out more of an infrastructure as a bigger picture. So going from a single developer on one machine, Chocolatey can start having knowledge of the applications that are installed on multiple machines as well within an organization.
All right, okay. So it could automatically pick up what's there and report it back to your line manager if you're putting dodgy software or software that you're not allowed to be using in work on your system.
To an extent. So I mean, it's not at the minute, and I don't think that's where it's going. It's not truly. It's not one of these tools that will sit and say, "Oh, Bob's just installed something that he's not meant to," and it's not going to do like license tracking for applications, but it will be able to report on that such and such is installed on 3 machines in the organization, or such and such hasn't got the most recent version of an application installed. Let's do something to sort that out, sort of thing.
Right. Okay. That'd be good for doing your Microsoft audit then.
I'll certainly have a part of it. Yeah, it can sort of fall into that once the full automation, the auditing piece is available, because that's one of the features that's kind of coming, is the full auditing capabilities. There is a limited auditing capabilities just now in Chocolatey, but once that gets built out, you'll have much more insights into what's installed and available on machines. Yeah.
All right. Cool. So is this just a Windows application? Does it support any of the other operating systems? Because obviously, I guess it's a .NET. It's built on .NET technology, with the likes of .NET Core. Will it support any of the other operating systems if it doesn't now?
So to answer the first question, so I mean, as of right now, as it stands today, the requirements for running Chocolatey are Windows 7 and above, and Windows Server 2003 and above, and it needs to have PowerShell 2 and above, and .NET Framework 4 as a kind of a minimum.
Right.
So the main target audience is certainly Windows at the minute. As of right now, you can compile and run the chocolatey.exe on a Linux environment. But I mean, not to be too fine a point on it, but Chocolatey and chocolatey.org kind of go hand in hand. But we can talk about that in a bit. But all of the packages that you would install with Chocolatey from chocolatey.org are Windows-based applications. So although you could run the chocolatey.exe and on a Linux system, you wouldn't be able to install an application because there are no applications on chocolatey.org that would do anything on a Linux machine, if you see what I mean. Yeah. But you could use the chocolatey.exe on a Linux machine to create packages, as an example. But if you weren't using chocolatey.org and you had your own internally hosted set of packages that do things on your Linux environment, then there would be nothing to stop you using Chocolatey to do that. But the main focus at the minute, I think it's fair to say that it is the Windows package manager at the minute. But we are looking towards .NET Core support, and certainly utilizing Chocolatey for example, on a Nano server where it only runs .NET Core. They might want to run and install packages on there as part of your deployment exercises as well. So yeah, it's definitely something that's being thought about and being looked into.
Right. Okay. You mentioned that packages, it uses packages, a bit like npm and NuGet then.
Yep. So where Chocolatey started, it actually took as a basis a NuGet package, and what it did, it looked at the new spec file that NuGet packages use, and it's since extended that to include additional attributes and information that goes into that new spec file, and it's also established a standard of the PowerShell scripts that go into that package to allow for the installation of the packages. But essentially, what Chocolatey is doing is it's automating the steps that you would do normally if you were installing a package. So let's break that down a bit. If you were wanting to install paint.net as an example on your machine, if you didn't already have that exe downloaded, then you would Google for paint.net. You get redirected to the wrong website because it's hosted by someone else to start with, and then you go redirected to the other one, and then eventually you would find the download page, and then you'd have to make an informed decision about whether it's a 32-bit download or a 64-bit download that you wanted. You'd download it, and then you'd have to double click on that exe or MSI or whatever it is. You would have to say no to the bundling of the Google toolbar or whatever it bundles with it if it's got something like that in it. You'd have to go next, and then eventually you would get that thing installed. So what Chocolatey does is essentially it takes all of that overhead away from you, and someone within the community who has created the paint.net package has already decided that these are the download URLs and put that information into the package. It's understood the silent arguments that have been needed to install that package, that application in a silent way. And essentially what the Chocolatey package is then doing with a bunch of Chocolatey comes along with these helper methods for installing MSIs and EXEs and all these things. And essentially what it's doing is it's then automating that entire process. So when you say Choco install paint.net, actually what you're doing is it'll go off to that website, it'll download that EXE of that MSI, and it'll automatically install it onto your machine as though you had done the installation yourself. So it's not doing any sort of magic, it's just automating all of those steps for you so you don't have to worry about it.
Right, okay. Yeah, because I often flatten my my laptops down and reinstall everything, and it can be a pain, especially when you've got, as you say, you've got a lot of configuration there. If you're installing something like the Adobe Suite or one of the older versions of Visual Studio where you had to pick a lot of different options. I know they've changed that with 2017, but that was a real pain point. And it doesn't do. You say it doesn't do anything magic. It's not like it's taking an image of how it's installed on your machine or anything like that. It's doing a normal install, but it's just doing it on a silent installation if it's available.
That's correct. But not to take anything away from that. So what you can do though, so out of the box, let's continue to use example paint.net. whoever's created the Paint.net package has established what the minimum requirements to get Paint.net installed on your machine is. But what you can then do on top of that is there's the concept of installation arguments and package parameters. So if probably a better example would be something like the Git package. So when you install Git on Windows, you've got a bunch of options that are quite scary when you read them, like it'll add things to the system path and it'll change things that might corrupt other packages, but you get a ton of checkboxes during the normal installation of Git. So the Chocolatey package for Git brings those out as package parameters. So you can customize the installation of the default installation by essentially ticking the checkboxes, but doing it at the command line. And then again, you can do that in a repeatable way across the multiple machines or the multiple reinstalls of the your laptop that you're doing. So if you do have specific configuration you want, you can definitely do that. Like say, package parameters into the Chocolatey package is one way of doing that, or actually overriding the installation arguments that are passed to the native installer is another way of doing that. So there's definitely some options there.
All right, yeah. So you can actually customize some of it so that you're not installing to the default installation location and things like that, but the package, well, the application that you're installing has to support these command line arguments for it to be able to work.
So yes and no, and it's going to be the answer is it depends. So when I talk about package parameters, that's something that the package creator has made an informed decision that they want to accept package parameters from the Choco install command. So you would do Choco install git, and then you would do -- package parameters, and then there would be a set of options that would enable the say the adding of Git to the system path. That would be one of the options that is available as a package parameter. But that's something that the package creator has knowingly made available to that package.
Right.
The other way of doing it is with installation arguments. So that is a parameter that you'd still do Choco install Git -- installation arguments, but then those installation arguments are passed directly to the native installer. Right. So at that point, the niceties have kind of been removed. You've gone away. You've gone one level further down the stack. Yeah. So you've got the package creator who has knowingly said, these are the package parameters I want to make available, and this is what it's going to do to the underlying installer. To you saying, right, I know what the MSI arguments are to make that option appear as part of that installation. I'm going to send those package installation arguments directly to the native installer.
Right. Okay.
So what I'm trying to say is it's entirely flexible, but it also comes with, you kind of need to know what you're doing as well.
Yeah, sure.
But 9 times out of 10, what you get from a Chocolatey package is the default installation that you would get if you just went next, finish through the installer.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So it's, you're not losing anything, and you also have that flexibility to do something different, but there might be a little bit of work you'd have to do to get it exactly the way you want it to. But having said that, once you have that information, the next time you do it, you've just got a script that you run, so you don't have to remember what you did.
All right. Yeah, that sort of leads on to my next question really quite nicely, is that we talked about installing Paint.net or Git, which are all individual applications. If I wanted to install a myriad of the applications that I use day to day, does Chocolatey remember that? Does it save it in a script which you can just run it again and it will just install everything for you as you did on that initial run?
So again, the possibilities are kind of endless here. So there's a couple of ways of doing it. So in the same way that, let's go back to a NuGet package, which some of your listeners will know about. A NuGet package, you've got the concept of like a meta NuGet package, where you can actually say this package has a dependency on this thing, and this thing. Yep. So by installing that meta package, you actually get all of these other assemblies added to your project as well. So Chocolatey has that same functionality. So you could create a meta package, a Chocolatey meta package that does nothing else but installs dependencies. Sure. So I could create, for instance, Gary's development environment tools, and then it would just have links off to the dependencies, which is within the new spec file that generates the package that says, I want to install Git, I want to install Paint.net, I want to install these things. So that's one way of doing it.
Yep.
The slight downside of that is that at the minute, I'm fairly sure I'm right in saying this. At the minute, you can't control the installation arguments or package parameters that are passed to those things. So that would literally be you just installing the default package that comes along for the ride.
Right. Okay.
The other way of doing it would be to actually create an installation script. So at the command line, you would type choco install paint.net with these installation arguments. Those could ultimately go into a PowerShell script that you then save off and then run as part of your setup of your machine. There's a couple of ways of doing it.
Yeah, so rather than Chocolatey doing it for you, you've just got a set of calls in your PowerShell that go and call Chocolatey and say install application 1, install application 2, install application 3.
There are mechanisms to there's mechanisms that obviously once you've installed all those packages with Chocolatey, they extract the ones that have been installed by Chocolatey, so you can then decide or create in the same way that you create a packages.config file for NuGet packages within your Visual Studio project. You can actually generate a packages.config file for Chocolatey packages. So from your installed machine, you can generate that packages.config file and take that and install that same list of packages onto another machine.
Sure. That just blew away my next question, which was, could I take my config from one machine and install it on another? And we could. So if you were setting up development machines, you could just have a one config set up and just run it on each machine, and jobs done. None of the faffing around for hours and having inconsistencies between your developers' laptops anymore.
Correct. And then once you have done all of those base installations, you then got one command, which is choco upgrade all. So at that point, if there's a new version of Git or a new version of KeyPass or a new version of whatever application that you want, Chocolatey will then go off, check what version you've got installed locally. It'll check to see if there is a new version of whatever package source that you're using, and it'll go ahead and upgrade those packages as well.
All right, and that'll update it on all the machines that are currently using that config.
Yeah, so you need to run that choco upgrade all command on each machine individually. Okay. At the minute, whether with the newer features that come out with the newer version of Chocolatey, that may well become a central administrative task. But at the minute, each developer would have to run choco upgrade all on their machines, but they would be allowed, they'd be keeping their systems up to date based on that initial config that you put out to them yet.
Right, okay. So the software that we can install with Chocolatey is stored in packages. If there isn't a package for the software that I use, could I create my own? Is it that straightforward?
It kind of is. I mean, I don't want to say it's ridiculously simple, because I mean there is a bit of a learning curve. But one of the commands that comes with Chocolatey is choco new and then just a package name. So what that will generate for you, it will scaffold out an entire Chocolatey package for you, including the new spec file, the installation file, and then the uninstall file. Yep. And in there, it gives you kind of lots and lots of detail. There's lots of comments in there that will tell you if you want to install an exe, this is what you need to do. If you want to install an MSI, this is what you need to do. If you want to download and extract a zip file that contains an exe, this is what you do. So it's got multiple options in there for all of those scenarios. And with that in place, you then, once you've modified that to your needs, it would be a case of doing a choco pack command similar to a NuGet pack that actually creates the NuGet package, and from there you can then put it to wherever you need it to be. So what I mean by that is, typically when people think about Chocolatey, they think about chocolatey.org. So if you create a package, you might want to push that to chocolatey.org for the purposes of people installing it. But in the same way that you can use systems like ProGet or Nexus to have an internally hosted repository of NuGet packages, you can do the same thing with Chocolatey packages as well. Excuse me. If you were creating tools as part of your day-to-day work, but they're only for internal purposes, then you can almost certainly use Chocolatey to push those out to your internal repository and install them from there as well.
Right. Yeah, that's good. So I don't need to actually use Chocolatey.org's cloud service or however that's run. I can actually set up a local server on my network and run it all from there.
Yeah, and what we tend to find is that Chocolatey.org is used by consumers, obviously, the people who are installing on their own machines. But there's a fairly detailed article on Chocolatey.org about why businesses, as an example, wouldn't want to use Chocolatey.org. And it's the same reason why businesses probably shouldn't be using NuGet.org, basically because it can't be trusted. So NuGet goes down for whatever reason, and you're left without access to those packages. Chocolatey.org is subject to the same problems. It's a cloud-hosted service that might be down for whatever reason. I don't think we have been down in recent memory, but that can happen. So what we tend to find is businesses have their own internal repositories of all their packages. Now that might be essentially a carbon copy of what's on Chocolatey.org, but they've brought it in-house and made it available internally.
Yeah, and it's a little bit more secure. You don't have any of the possible problems like NPM had not too long ago when somebody removed their package from the servers.
And what I will say about Chocolatey.org is that any package that is pushed to Chocolatey.org is subject to a level of moderation. It's something that NuGet.org doesn't have. Pretty much anyone can push anything they want to NuGet.org and have it as a package. Chocolatey.org has actually a moderation process where if you push a package to Chocolatey.org, you'll be allowed to do that, but then you're subject to an automated suite of test that verifies that you're not doing some really, really bad things. And then it's actually looked at by a pair of human eyes as well before it'll actually make it onto Chocolatey.org. So there's security baked in with Chocolatey, but the ultimate security with Chocolatey would be to take the entire repository internal. You own all the packages that you want to make available, and then you use the Chocolatey client, the command line, to install those packages on whatever machines you need it.
And Chocolatey is an open source project as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep, definitely.
So where do I go to actually get involved with it?
So everything is hosted up on GitHub. So you just go to github.com/chocolatey, and you'll see multiple repositories sitting in there. The repositories kind of cater for all the different facets of Chocolatey, whether it's Chocolatey.org, whether it's the Chocolatey CLI client, whether it's the different extensions that Chocolatey has going into things like OneGet, or however you want to, the package management tool, things like Puppet, tie-in for Puppet, tie-ins for Chef, all those things are hosted on the GitHub Chocolatey organization. So that would be the place to start. There's a very active Gitter channels for Chocolatey as well. So if you got any questions, you could drop in there. But yeah, certainly GitHub is where it's all hosted.
Yeah. It's all these names of all these other packages and that. I'm sure there's something that somebody could string together with Chocolatey, Cake, Chef, maybe baking a static website somewhere along the lines, just for playing with names.
Indeed.
So on the website, I've noticed that there's a pricing structure for Chocolatey. What's that about if it's an open source project?
So Chocolatey is and always will be first and foremost an open source project. But what started as a result of a Kickstarter about maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, Rob Reynolds, the creator of Chocolatey, put out a Kickstarter which basically tested the water to see if there was interest in creating a professional version of Chocolatey, which would be a paid-for product that would extend the base functionality of the open source Chocolatey client with some additional features. So those additional features would be things like where do we start? I mean, there's lots of them. So the pricing structure is kind of broken down into a couple. There's the free version, which is free and will always be free. There's a professional edition, but there's also then on top of that, there's a business edition. So it's kind of where businesses are using Chocolatey in-house for their sole installation utility across all of their systems. So there's a lot more features that are going into Chocolatey for Business, specifically for business orientated people. So as an example of the features that come with Chocolatey Professional would be things like what we refer to as the ubiquitous installation directory. So what I mean by that is, if you know what you're doing, you can, as I discussed, you could add an installation argument to specify that you want this package to be installed on an E drive rather than a C drive.
Yep.
Yeah. But Chocolatey Professional comes with it this ability to identify the underlying installer type, because an EXE isn't just an EXE. An EXE can actually be made up of an install wizard generated EXE or an NS setup EXE. So what Chocolatey is able to do by looking at and inspecting the EXE is it knows the underlying install created, the type of install that was used to create that EXE or MSI.
Yep.
And it can automatically override the installation arguments. So it knows how to do that out of the box. So rather than you as a person having to know that for this package to override the installation directory, you have to pass in this argument, Chocolatey for Professional knows how to do that out of the box. So you could just literally say to it, install this package to that directory, and it knows how to pass that to the underlying installer.
Right. Okay. So it's like a Chocolatey plus, really. You get a little bit more chocolate for your money.
And then when we start talking about Chocolatey for Business, you're talking about features along the lines of what we're referring to as package internalizer. So as of right now, there's all these packages on chocolatey.org. So as a business who's wanting to get started with Chocolatey, you might want to use the packages that are on chocolatey.org as a starting point. So the slight issue or the slight niggle with that is that a Chocolatey package, in essence, is just a script that says go off to the internet and download this package.
Yep.
Right? But as a business, you don't want to do that because you want to download and install it on 1,000 machines.
Sure.
So Chocolatey package internalizer can allow you to point at a package, and then it will automatically inspect that package to find out where it's downloading those packages from, and then you've got actually got the option of downloading those and then putting them into the Chocolatey package itself. So the package could actually contain the native installers.
Right.
So from a business standpoint, you've then got everything that you need in that Chocolatey package to do the installation. You don't have to run off and download it each and every time.
Yeah, you got like an offline installer for it.
Exactly that. But the package internalizer automatically does that. So you don't have to worry about manually going off and downloading it and sticking it into a Chocolatey package. You can just say to Chocolatey package internalizer, go off and get this for me and create a package out of it.
Right. And
then there's other things like you kind of spoke on it before when you were touching on can Chocolatey know what I've got installed in on different machines. That's where something like the package synchronizer comes into play. So it will automatically look at what you've got in your programming features. So if you've got a new machine that's never had Chocolatey, for as an example, you could run package synchronizer and it will create Chocolatey packages for you for all of the programming features installed applications that you have.
Right.
So there's that's kind of things that come when you start looking at Chocolatey from a business standpoint, and that's kind of where the license additions start to come into play, because all of these other features that typically a single developer just working on one machine doesn't need all of those things. But as a business using it, and that's where the license fee and associated costs comes from. Yeah.
Does it come with SLAs and things like that? Because if there's anybody out there listening that may be thinking about bringing it into their business, I know some companies won't allow you to use open source software just because of the legalities around it if there's a problem.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. I mean, what I would say is I would get it wrong if I try and tell you the use of that. But if you have a look on the Chocolatey website on the pricing section, then it has some links out to the various FAQs regarding what the support agreements are and what you get for your money and all that sort of stuff. So I'm not going to claim to know that off the top of my head. So I direct people to the website if they are interested in that. And if you have got any follow-up questions, definitely jump onto Gitter or the communication channels that are available and ask the questions there, and you'll definitely get an answer.
Yeah, sure. I'll include all the links for that in the show notes as well, so people can can dive off and look at that later on rather than trying to scramble for a pen now and write it all down. So there are a few other solutions out there that do a similar thing. What makes Chocolatey stand out from some of the other solutions, such as I think Ninite was one that I've seen?
So Ninite is a good one. So there's definitely Ninite is an option. Probably the biggest difference is just the sheer number of packages. So Ninite has a limited set of packages that are available, and they keep them up to date. Whereas Chocolatey has a much wider range of packages, and they're not just developer-focused ones either. So if you wanted to install Office, or you wanted to install Skype, all of the kind of the business utilities that you need as well, they're all available on Chocolatey, or to install using Chocolatey from chocolatey.org. And also obviously got the option of creating your own packages and stuff as well.
Right.
What I would say is, again, on the Chocolatey website, there's an article that goes through the differences between Chocolatey and Ninite, and it kind of breaks it down into what's available in one and what's available in the other. So if anyone's got any questions about that sort of stuff, there's some comparisons between Chocolatey and Ninite and some of the other package management tools as well. So
cool.
Again, the information's there if people have got an interest in that.
Yeah, sure. So I've got my laptop set up pretty much the way that I like it set up with the software that I use. Mm-hmm. How long, really, as a general sort of idea, would it take for me to get Chocolatey downloaded, installed, and be in a position that I could clear my reformat my laptop, reinstall Windows, and get Chocolatey back on the laptop and reinstall that software that I need?
Good question. So what I would say is, in terms of getting Chocolatey installed, assuming that you have those base requirements that we spoke about, so you've already got PowerShell 2, you've already got .NET 4, which you would have if you got, let's say, Windows 10, you've already got those things out of the box, then installing Chocolatey is a single command line from the website. So if you go to the website and you click on the install link at the top, then there is a single command line that you can run that will download the chocolatey.exe and put everything in place for you to start doing installs straight away. So that install probably takes less than a minute to download and install. What I would say is there are a couple of caveats around that, and it does trip a few people up when they first try and install Chocolatey. I mean, for example, if you're installing from the command line, you need to run it as an administrator command prompt. So if you try and install Chocolatey and on admin mode, it's not going to work. And if you're using PowerShell to do the installation, then the default execution policy on PowerShell would restrict the downloaded PowerShell script from actually executing. Yep. So you there's a kind of pre-step that you have to do to set the execution policy. But assuming that you have a little bit of understanding of the command prompt and/or PowerShell, then and you read the instructions, getting Chocolatey installed is a minute at most, sort of thing. And then once you've got that installed, then you've got access to the Choco install commands. So at that point, you can then just literally start running off to your heart's content. Choco install Fiddler, Choco install Visual Studio, Choco install whatever you want. The world's your oyster at that point.
Cool. It sounds really good to actually get off and do it. I know probably a couple of years back now, I was having a whinge to somebody about how long it takes me to reinstall everything on my laptop, because it's got the all the Adobe applications. You've got Visual Studio, as well as Office and the myriad of other applications, and when I had games and things on there that I regularly played, and I did a little bit of third-party game development, you were installing all of those and all the add-ons. I think from formatting it, installing Windows, and then getting everything back on, it used to take me a good week of spare time to actually get my laptop back up and running. It's a little bit less now because I've got fewer applications. It's more productivity and stuff for the development day job, really, that I installed on there now. But it's still a big chunk of time. That something like this, I think, would save quite a lot of time for me. And
I mean, what I would say is that when you first start using Chocolatey, there's a little bit of investment there to get familiar with it, and then get it to a point where you have that kind of installation script, or you have that list of packages in a packages.config file to get back to that known state that you're trying to get to. So there is a little bit of investment. So the first time around, it might not be that much quicker, but the second time, the third time, the fourth time, you've then got that list of packages, that installation scripts that you can just rattle off to your heart's content again.
Yeah, sure.
And what I would say is, Chocolatey is, once you've got it installed, it's one of those things you can just dip into as well. Like recently, I've been doing some Linux development where I've been connecting to remote machines, and then I've got all of these hardcore Linux developers that are saying to me, "Oh, just install Kitty or install Putty," and I'm like, "All right, how do I get that?" And then without even thinking, I've done Choco install Putty and Choco install Kitty, and I've got those tools. They're already there. I haven't even had to. Don't even have to think about it. And then the one that really surprised one of the developers I was working with, we were then using Xming to do like X11 forwarding of window commands from the SS8 session that we're doing. And he's like, "Oh no, Chocolatey is not going to have Xming." And I'm like, "Well, let's just give it a try." So without going to the website, without doing anything, I've just done Choco install Xming, and it's printed out what it's going to do at the command line, because that's the other thing about Chocolatey, is that by default it's not going to run anything unless you tell it to. So it prints out exactly what it's actually going to install for you. So I've just had a quick look at it. Yeah, that looks good. And then I've got Xming on my machine ready to go. So it's one of those tools that kind of sits in the background as well. And you just dip into it when you need it as well.
Yeah, I think that'd be good. I don't know, maybe I'm a bit peculiar, but I like to format the drive and start again with a clean installation of Windows quite often. I think every sort of 6 to 8 months I do it. And it soon builds up. But if you're also doing VMs and things like that, it's it'd be very good for that, because you could get your VM up and running very quickly if you weren't just copying and pasting virtual hard drives, I guess.
That's it. So you mentioned in the intro that I've also in the past worked on Box Starter. So that's the other. Box Starter is kind of another utility that sits on top of Chocolatey. So where Chocolatey is the package manager, Box Starter brings with it some commands that are specific to the Windows environment. If you wanted to enable things like Windows features, like making your taskbar small icons and docking it to the left-hand side, or enabling showing of hidden files and folders and all those kind of tweaks that you make to your own machine. Box Starter brings with it those list of commandlets or commandlets that will allow you to enable those things. So again, in a repeatable way, you're then saving yourself those mouse clicks to enable hidden files and folders. There's a commandlet within Box Starter that you can add to a Chocolatey script to make that happen.
Oh, right, okay. So does Chocolatey out of the box support these scripts that the Box Starter is producing? So I could produce them without Box Starter to do other things that maybe I want to copy some files from a network location or something like that.
So if you were going down the Box Starter route, then Box Starter is fully dependent on Chocolatey. So you can't have Box Starter without Chocolatey. So what Box Starter actually does is it will allow you to create just a script that has all of the commands that you want to run, install all the scripts that you want to run. So that might be, for instance, I forget what the commandlet's called, but let's just say it's the commandlet for making your taskbar icons small. So that would be one line of your script. The next line of your script might be Choco install Fiddler. It might be Choco install Paint.net. So when Box Starter runs, what it's actually doing behind the scenes is it's actually taking that script and creating a Chocolatey package out of it.
Right, okay.
And then what it will then do is it will then bootstrap Chocolatey to take that generated Chocolatey package and run that script on your machine. And what Box Starter does is it then handles things like system reboots. So if you're installing an application that you know needs a system reboot, then Box Starter can pick up the request for that system reboot the machine, and then automatically log you back into the machine to continue on where it left off.
Sure.
So that's kind of where Box Starter starts and ends, whereas Chocolatey, in the Box Starter context, Chocolatey is the package manager. It's the thing that's doing the install, but box starters doing the other stuff specific to the environment that's going on to. So specific Windows features, and like I say, handling the system reboots as well.
Cool. Well, I think we're just about out of time for today's episode, but I think I will take the advice a little bit later than when it was given, and maybe give this a go and actually get some scripts sorted out. So when I next do a reinstall, it doesn't take me forever to get everything up and running again.
Absolutely, yep, sounds good.
Yeah, and thanks for coming on and talking about Chocolatey and Box Starter as well.
Yep, not a problem at all.
Okay, great. So thanks for listening to Cynical Developer. I'm James Stoddart, and you've been listening to Gary Ewan Park talking about Chocolatey. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on your favourite podcast platform and help the Cynical Developer to grow by increasing its audience. If you have any questions about this or any other episode, then drop us an email, a tweet, or leave a comment on the website where you can find all the resource links and show notes for each episode.